My name is Danny Bullock. I am a life-centered planner at Dream Builders Financial Services. We specialize in life and retirement planning. We just don't help you get your retirement figured out. We help you to discover how to live the best life you have with the money, the bucket of money that you're able to generate in your life. So we just don't worry about your retirement. We want you to live a full life. And with me today, my special guest, Rebecca Dupre. We actually did a webinar, I think it was last July, Family Love Letter, that had some estate planning aspects to it. And we're back again. We felt that this presentation was timely, being that I have dealt with clients who have had certain issues in getting certain documents done in time for people going to the hospital. We thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about estate planning, but especially around coronavirus. Now, again, this is just education. This is not to be deemed as advice, as everybody's situation is different. And if you do want to follow up with Rebecca or myself, we will sit down and talk with you 15, 20 minutes or whatever it may be, just to get some idea of what questions and things you have going on and you may need help with, and go from there. But this is not advice, it's just education. And as I said, Rebecca Dupre is a well-equipped estate attorney. She has helped several of my clients in the past with their estate planning issues and some of the things that they've had going on. And that's why I've asked her to come back again. There are a lot of estate attorneys who are good at what they do. One of the things I love about Rebecca is she's good at explaining certain processes and how they work. And I think she works well with my clients, and the people I've sent to her are referred to her, and they've always given me a good feedback. And she helps me to understand some of these complex issues as well. And that's why I've asked her on this call with us tonight. So Rebecca, if you don't mind just introducing yourself a little bit, or
Sure.
telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I just really appreciate Danny asking me to do this again. I think that, he has a really good heart for his clients and really cares about them. And it comes through in, talking with them and understanding the things that he's putting in place for them. So it's just really a great opportunity for me to be able to, to help him, to help his clients. We help each other figuring things out. So I work with people on this stuff all the time, and it's not always easy to have conversations about these types of issues. But I think what I try to say is it's kind of like, some of this is kind of like an umbrella on a rainy day. Like if you get up in the morning and the forecast says it's going to rain 50% and you don't take the umbrella and it rains, you get wet. But if you do take it, all you did was carry around an umbrella all day. And so, having some of this stuff kind of written down somewhere in place, understood where you can get at it if you need it, I think can just be super helpful and make you feel a little bit, have a little bit of peace of mind around it.
Just a couple of housekeeping rules. You have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We are going to try to get to all questions at the end of the presentation. And the reason we want to do that is because we may actually answer your question in the presentation itself. Rebecca is going to help me by monitoring the chat box. And if we come to a question that someone asked on one of the slides, she'll make reference to that question and try to answer your question then. And then if the question you ask, we don't cover in the presentation, if we have time, we'll try to get to it at the end when we have hopefully a little time for question and answering. So, all right, so let's get started. It's very easy to see the numbers of how coronavirus is affecting us today. Just with the death totals as of the 19th have gone over 500,000 deaths. Regardless of how you feel, it is affecting a lot of people here in the country and things of that nature. So it needs to be viewed seriously. One of the things that's making it even more difficult is the quarantine. And no one could have predicted that we would probably be in, I think we're coming up on a year that we have been restricted in some fashion. I think middle of next month will be a year, and stay-at-home orders probably kicked in a little later, probably April or May. And a lot of people are isolated. They can't talk to their loved ones, and how will they know, what they'll want to have happen in the event that they're, taken to the hospital and faced with the possibility of actually going on, a ventilator. And another point to that is isolation. And, Rebecca, you made mention of that briefly. Person gets sick and they go into the hospital and they're whisked away into the ICU or some other part of the hospital. And this actually happened with us. My mother fell and she broke her ankle, and we didn't, know that she had COVID. She didn't know. She didn't have any symptoms, and she ended up going into the hospital getting the test, only to find out that she had COVID, and they took her to a unit, and we had no access to her for the first 4 days. And it wasn't until the fourth day that we actually were able to get in touch with somebody who actually was able to give us some information on what exactly had happened, and then what needed to happen over the next couple of weeks as she was in the COVID unit. So I understand, how important this can be if you have family members. People have family members, and if you can't speak for yourself, their spouses, sons, daughters, can't speak for them either. What would be the best thing for them to do, in matters like that. And that's why, one of the reasons I wanted to do this webinar now is because some of the things that I have experienced since coronavirus has happened. We talk about the deaths, and I thought about putting pictures of, people that maybe some famous people who have succumbed to the disease, but these two individuals touch me the most. Gloria Hall was a member of my church, and beautiful woman. She would always donate to some of the causes I do a lot of mentorship, and she would always, after service, after we talked about the next initiative we were doing, she would come by and give me, 40, $50 and say, for the children. And she ended up getting sick, and she just didn't get better. And she didn't come out of the hospital when she went in. Curtis Pearson is a young brother that I've known since he was 9 years old. He was like a little brother to me. And he, when this virus first happened, he came down with it, and he went into the hospital, and he never came out. Unfortunately, he left a 9-year-old son. You see him with Curtis Jr. there, and a newborn. He had a not even a year-old newborn that he left, through his passing, from COVID. So this is very personal for me. This information is not just education. It's in hopes that it can actually help somebody as they're going through not just this stage, but any season of their lives. We know that COVID now is the number 2 killer cause of death in America today. It's killing people who had no underlying issues. Curtis had no health issues, and he succumbed to the disease. And one of the things we wanted to point out, we talked about looking at the graph, regardless of how you feel about COVID-19, people are dying from it. And, you have family members who experience illness, and there may be another illness, heart disease or something like that. This is just a good reminder that whether it's, COVID-19 or anything else, it's always a good point to make sure that your will and estate planning is always taken care of. So we're going to talk about some things that can go wrong if you're not prepared. And Rebecca, feel free to chime in anytime here if you like. And we're going to go through all of these points individually, but I just want to touch on them really quick. What could go wrong if people aren't prepared. And the first one is inappropriate medical decisions if there's no advance directive. Now, there's unique considerations with COVID. Some people may have a living will saying that you don't want to be put on a ventilator under any circumstances. And we understand that, you may have a do not resuscitate, but we've heard that ventilators are actually a good method in helping people recover from this disease. And so if you have anything in your will or living testament that says you don't want to be resuscitated, you may want to look at that, because ventilators could help if you were to come down with COVID and be whisked off to the ICU. Um, Something else that we look at, when we come to things that could go wrong, are who's making your financial decisions. And I've seen families. I've been in this business long enough to see families fight over money and just about any amount. Doesn't even have to be large amounts of money. And when you go into the hospital, you have a situation like this happen. You want to make sure that your business and your family is equipped to continue to go on, with you out without you there. I have a friend who was in the hospital. It's not COVID, but he ended up having a really bad accident, and he crushed his pelvis and everything, and he is going to be in occupational therapy for a while. And it was important, and I'm glad that we were able to help him get all of this stuff done before. But COVID is just another reason why we want to make sure that these things are taken care of. What happens if you're admitted to the ICU, and who's authorized to carry on the business? If you're a business owner, if you're not married and you have other assets, who's there to be able to write checks to pay bills on your behalf, and just simple finances, transferring money to certain accounts. So having a power of attorney for your financial issues is very essential. Rebecca, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that that's all correct. And I think that we're going to cover some more of the stuff in greater detail. But yeah, I think thinking about this stuff ahead of time and being thoughtful about who you can trust and how you want your assets to go. And then, the 2.0 of this, which we'll also talk about, is how you want to be remembered too. So I think all these things are super important.
Yeah. And so another thing that could go wrong is, we really hate thinking about this, is, what happens if you don't make it? Assets would be in limbo if there's no estate measures taken. Loved ones wouldn't know who to turn to and what to do. One of the things and we'll talk about this in this presentation a little bit as well, but I always encourage my clients to put all of this information in a safe place. And I usually have my card, and if they have an estate planner, put that card in there as well with all of their financial documents. So they can go, and you let your family members know, you let your wife know, you let your children know, you let your brother or sister know if you're not married or whatever, and they're able to go to this one place and grab this information, so it'll have all of your information in one place, so you can make one phone call and we can start trying to figure some things out. So today we're going to talk about things that you can do right now from home. And me and Rebecca went back and forth about this a little bit. We want to make sure that you guys understand that by me saying that these are some things that you can do right now from home, we don't recommend that you try to do a whole will and estate plan and not have it at least reviewed by a qualified estate attorney. If you get to a point, and everybody will, if you're not familiar with some of the things that are in the estate plan, itself, you're going to need somebody else to look over and make sure everything is in its proper order. Again, what we're talking about today is not a full-blown estate plan. And for anybody who's done a full-blown estate plan, how necessary it is to sit down and have an attorney just, cross all those T's and dot all those I's. So in this presentation, we're going to be talking about things you can do yourself without an attorney. And the forms I'm going to give you at the end are anticipated for you to get an assessment of where you are, but start the checklist of some things that you need to make sure are taken care of, and then take those to, a good estate attorney. I happen to know one, and she's joining us right now. So, all right. So first, we're going to talk about planning for illness or incapacity. And advanced directives generally combine two things, and that's a living will and a power of attorney for health decisions. Rebecca actually gave me some information, a couple of weeks ago. My family is in Delaware, and Because I told you my mother was in the hospital and was unexpected. I wanted to make sure that, all the information was coming through one person, i.e. me. My father wanted me to be the one to kind of deal with the doctors and, relay it back to the family. So um, advanced directives are made up of those two parts, a living will and a power of attorney. The living will allows you to state your healthcare wishes in the event you're unable to communicate. In the case you're not able to communicate and make decisions, the power of attorney allows you to appoint someone to interact with the medical personnel on your behalf. Rebecca, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, one thing that I've experienced in conversations I've had, particularly with medical professionals and folks at like hospice centers and things like that, is that the doctors don't actually read these documents. They're not lawyers. They look at them and they say, okay, you're so and so, you're the person that's listed on this document. Tell me what you want to have happen, or let me tell you what's going on. So the person that you pick needs to understand what your wishes are and be able to communicate those wishes to the doctor. Because, like I said, they're just, the doctor doesn't always have time. They're not going to sit there and try to interpret what you meant by whatever it was you said. So you need to be clear, and the person you appoint needs to be able to do that. So as you're thinking about who to appoint, it's important to think about who you think is going to be able to act in those moments that are typically um, crisis moments when you're trying to use these documents.
And that's always good to remember because you're also adding pressure on to somebody in the event that maybe you are on a ventilator or on life support and they may have to make a certain decision. Are they capable of actually making that decision that you want to have made, and you've talked about it. Essentially, you want to be able to have this conversation with them before you just appoint them. It'd be kind of rough if they got the notice when you were in the hospital. Here are some state requirements for advanced directives. Now, I put this link in it. We're in Rhode Island. And Rebecca, you can talk maybe a little bit about some of the state requirements for advanced directives here in Rhode Island. But if you are not in the state of Rhode Island, I'll leave this link up if you want to copy it. And you can go there and look at the requirements for notary if two witnesses or notary are needed. In some states, both are required. So, Rebecca, are there any requirements for the state of Rhode Island?
Yeah, Rhode Island does require the two witnesses or a notary for healthcare directives. Massachusetts, I believe, is the same because our firm does work in Massachusetts too. And I know, and this is kind of a general statement, but I know that there are services out there. Like right now, a lot of states have instituted remote notaries, so you don't actually have to go to the notary. There's obviously some services in Rhode Island. We have a group called Essential Signings, and this person will come out and do the notary at your house for a fee, obviously, but for folks who are out there who are nervous about leaving home, or maybe they have a loved one who isn't able to leave because of an illness. There's obviously other ways that the states and companies are trying to make it as easy as possible to do some of this stuff.
Yeah, and some places aren't even allowing people to come in. So the mobile notaries are a big asset. We actually have a company that we can use that in the United States. They actually find notaries who can go out different states and then actually get the notary, the signatures and everything done in a timely manner. So options for advanced directives. Now, again, these are some sources, and you can look at them and you can find wishes, offered through an organization called Agent with Dignity. They offer a form for $5, as well as conversation tips and things of that nature to kind of get you thinking about some of the things that you would want to add, in the living will and things of that nature. So if you want, we posted that web address as well. If you want to copy that down and, you can look at that later. One of the things that we just talked about, and this is very, very important. I can't stress how vital it is in the event that something were to happen where you were not able to make decisions for yourself and your family needed all of your information that was important about making a healthcare decision for you. Call it a grab and go envelope. And in the case of emergency to a hospital, you want to put your healthcare directive, list of your medical condition, list of your medications and allergies, and the names and phone numbers of your primary care physician and your healthcare proxy and your insurance cards, and put this in an envelope and put it in a place again where you give the family notice of if anything were to happen to me, this envelope in the kitchen drawer. We all have a junk drawer. Maybe you put it there. Maybe it's in the nightstand drawer next to your bed. Get that envelope, take it to the hospital, and that has all of the information that you would need to be able to assist in making a decision about my healthcare and who, it would be the person I would want making decisions on my behalf. So.
No, that's great. I love this idea, Danny. I think I told you that when we were going through this. I have actually done some cards for people that they can keep in their wallets that have some of this, that's not this extensive, but at least have some of this information on it for people maybe who travel a lot. Not that any of us are going anywhere lately, but when we go back to traveling, because if you're somewhere else outside of your residence, and you go, get into a car accident or something terrible like that, you want to be able to know who to contact and know what to do. So, it's a good idea to have that stuff, on you somewhere when you're away from home too.
And I think one of the things that is really important to remember is, like you said, Rebecca, the doctors are really busy. And the time that it takes to get you in, figure out what's going on, try to get an assessment. Now, you can't talk for yourself, things of that nature. Try to get an assessment of everything that's going on with you. How much time is taken, in matters like that? Something like this would cut some of that time in half. They'd be able to call your primary care physician. They would know exactly what medications you're on and things of that nature. So, it would aid them and cut down on the time that it would take to be, going through the process of elimination and trying to contact family members who may be able to add any of this information because it's not there in the envelope. So I always stress to my clients to keep it, in a place and let your family members know, and so they can go and get it, and all of those things are in it. All right, power of attorney for finances. This document gives another person the power to pay your bills, to transfer money, to manage your investments, to buy or sell real estate, to manage digital assets and more. Now, this is important because the last thing you want to have is somebody who you wouldn't want to have access to your money and making decisions about your finances, getting the power to be able to do that, or somebody who you actually wanted to manage your finances and to pay your bills and to make sure things are still kept up while you're not able to do that, not have access to be able to do that. The power of attorney can issue broad powers or specific powers. Two characteristics you want to make sure that are in there are the agent, or they're honest and they're competent. You want to make sure that the person you're giving the ability to handle your money, you can trust. And like I said before, making sure they're trustworthy and they're competent. You can choose your spouse. You can choose a good friend. It's funny, part of my estate, certain decisions my wife doesn't make because I don't want to put that kind of stress on her. I think she's fully understanding why, and she understands what my intentions are. But some things, for as of right now, my father would make the decisions, and I think he would have an easier time if it came down, unfortunately, to a health decision where we had to pull the plug or something. I don't think I want to give that. I don't want my wife to be saddled, with that. And so you want to make sure that the person is honest, they're competent, and they have access to, these things, again, through the envelope. Rebecca, you want to add anything to that?
I think one thing I would say about powers of attorney in general that applies to this and also to the healthcare is that in listening to what you were just saying is, picking the person you want. In some cases, it's sort of the quote unquote natural person is like your spouse.
Mm.
But you might be in a relationship where you're not married, right? But you feel this person is like your spouse. If you don't have this stuff written down, that person may be cut out of the process, and they may be the one who has, understands you the best, or would be able to be the person to make these types of decisions for you. And if your family doesn't like the person or
Yeah.
something like that, they can step in and push that person out. And so, it's I just think that's for some people that could be a unique need that some of these documents could meet.
And that's a good point because Curtis wasn't married. He had two children and he was living with his younger son's mother. And the individual who were making decisions on his behalf was his older brother. And I'm pretty sure that if he had this in order, he would have probably, and granted, there were any issues or anything like that. They talked to each other every day. He kept her up to date, kept all of us up to date with what was going on and the decision they made as a unit. But could you imagine if, like you said, Rebecca, the family didn't like the person and they were making the decisions? It would just make everything that more chaotic. So, all right, durable power of attorney, general, and you want to make sure that an attorney takes that this takes effect immediately upon signing it, or you may want it to take effect after the disability. And this is another reason why you want to make sure that you have an attorney look at certain things, because in the event that this is done incorrectly, it actually could, I don't want to say bite you in the butt, but I'll let you talk about it a little bit, Rebecca, because you legally can give a better explanation on it than I can.
Yeah, I think in some cases we use this in some of the distinctions we were just making around spouse, not spouse, children, not children. So certain people, they may not, maybe their spouse, they're divorced or their spouse has died. They don't have kids. So they may want to have somebody do this. Like sometimes people pick accountants or other financial people in their life, but they don't want that person to have the power to do that today. So we may pick a power that has a little bit of safeguards around it. So they have to produce some kind of letter from a doctor saying, yes, this person is no longer capable of managing their own finances and they need to use this. It does, I think the cons of that can be that by creating more barriers, sometimes the financial institutions get nervous.
Mm.
Right now, obviously, with COVID, it's hard to get in to see a doctor. So there's definitely some cons around doing those kinds of things. So that's why I think one of the reasons why you want to talk to somebody who understands this stuff is they can identify those risks, and then you can decide what kind of risks versus what kind of, now don't want to call them rewards, but what pros and what cons you're sort of willing to give and take on. Because, nothing is perfect, but you want to get something as close as to your particular situation and meet your particular needs as possible.
And again, we have some web addresses here, and you can use one of these paid services to create, power of attorney. But again, it's a great idea to have a lawyer look at it because it may not have all the aspects you need. Like some of the things Rebecca was just talking about. You want to make sure that, these things are set up so, you don't end up making the situation a lot more difficult for your families, and adding more workarounds in the event that you actually do need a durable power of attorney. So these web addresses are here just to get you started. Our intentions are, again, to drive you back to a state planner, who can look at all of your documents and then, help. And just, sometimes it's just a review, telling you it's okay. Sometimes they may, talk to you a little more and you discover that some things that you weren't able to cover with these free paid, web addresses, services, they're able to help point out and add these things to a POA. So, all right. So let's talk about everybody's happy subject. That's planning for your death. This is by far the hardest thing for us in my profession to deal with and to talk about. And so it's, we don't like to talk about our own mortality, but for the safety of our friends and family, we should take a look at it this time, take this time as an opportunity to look at it and try to plan, in the event. And we all are not getting out of here alive. So, at some point we need to plan for, our death in one shape or form. All right. So keeping that in mind, we're talking about things that you can do in the short term if you don't have access to a lawyer. But I'm going to give you Rebecca's information at the end, and everybody's going to take down her email and her phone number. So you're going to have access to, a lawyer. But we'll start with account titling and beneficiary designations. Why? Because these assets pass directly to co-owners or beneficiaries outside of probate. I was dealing with a couple, this is a year or so ago, and they husband had not changed his beneficiary. He had been divorced for 5 years, and his ex-wife was still on the beneficiary forms. And he just one day something popped in his head that he needed to look at it to change it. And he realized that all the money would have continued to go to her and then not his children. So if you also have a will, these methods of ownership transfer supersede the will. In case of bank and investment accounts, if these are joint accounts, one owner dies, co-owner assumes full ownership of your bank account. So if you're married and you guys are on same bank account, those go to the surviving spouse right away. So that's something that's there. And insurance companies don't argue about beneficiaries. This is one of the things, I always remind my clients is whoever's on the form, they're going to send the account information and the money to. And so you want to make sure that you're always keeping those things up to date and you're looking at them when there are significant changes in your life. All right. IRAs, retirement plans, all of those things are passed by beneficiary designation, and real estate, TOD deed. And I'm going to let Rebecca talk about this a little bit more because she has just a little bit more knowledge on that in itself. So do you mind talking about the real estate and the transfer upon death?
Sure. Yeah. So I know some states allow this and some don't. So my expertise is Rhode Island, and even though I'm not licensed in Massachusetts yet, we do a lot of work in Massachusetts. So I do this under, the purview of other Massachusetts lawyers, but you can set up a deed. Sometimes they call it a life estate deed, I think is probably what this is referring to. So you can reserve the ability to stay in the house, do all the things that an owner does. But then when you pass away, whoever you name as the quote unquote remainder would get your real estate and it wouldn't pass through probate. We do this a lot for folks, particularly like this can be done in conjunction with some other types of planning with respect to just joint accounts in general. Again, it's sort of a person by person thing. You have to be careful who you put on your joint accounts because you want to make sure the person doesn't have a whole bunch of judgments out against them, or, they're trustworthy, because your stuff can become part of their problem. If so, or, sometimes people are trustworthy and they get sued anyway. So you just have to be mindful of that. But again, it comes down to just understanding what the risks are and knowing what, your risks you're sort of willing to take. But I tell people this all the time when they come to me, they think they need a trust or something. And I'm like, well, what kind of assets do you have? And they tell me it's, all assets that have either pay on death or can be jointly owned. And maybe it's not worth it to set up that stuff. So you want to, I think a lot of what we've put in this, as far as these resources, is really a way for people to get educated. So when they do go talk to a lawyer, they feel like they have an understanding of what it is that is out there. It's just to double check and make sure the lawyer is telling you the right thing, and that, because I know lawyers get a bad rap, and I think there's a lot of really good people out there, but there's also people out there that aren't doing the right thing. And you want to make sure you're protecting yourself, and getting the right information and paying for what you need, and not getting a huge estate plan that maybe you don't actually need.
And one of the things I want to add, Rebecca, you were talking about somebody who is, don't have creditor issues and things of that nature, but also your children. If they're married and they end up getting divorced, that money, the things that you've given them access to, assets, becomes a part of that judgment as well. So you want to make sure that you address that in itself, too, because giving them access to those assets can become a part of the judgment. So you want to make sure that that's the, you would not know that going on LegalZoom or anything like that. And again, we put it there as a way for you guys to get the process started. That information is only going to come through a seasoned attorney who knows, everything and can look at you holistically and then give you advice on how to build this thing the right way. All right. So,
and one thing, sorry to interrupt you, Danny, but we're getting to tax season too, right? So we're gonna start going and talking to our accountants, and not all accountants are super familiar with this stuff, but that person may have a bit of an insight as to your particular situation too, and you're already there and you're already paying them, so why not take advantage of what you're already doing, before you go try to talk to a lawyer and spend money, just trying to think of ways that things are already going to be doing, and try not to spend too much money. Like, that's another good kind of person that you can talk to too.
And actually help with the setup when you actually do go and meet an attorney. So simple wills. Look, even if you think all of your assets are passing by the beneficiary designation or transfer of death scenarios, it's still a good idea to have a simple will in case you miss an asset or you have an interest in an asset that you weren't aware of. Also, you may have minor children, and this is something I'm always preaching to my brothers and sisters. They have minor children. The money is going to follow your children. If your children are the beneficiaries, or you set it up for your life insurance policies and things of that nature to go with them, the money's always going to follow them. So a will is often the only legal way to appoint a guardian, and it's not a natural parent of a child. And so I've seen family members, again, go tooth and nail about what a person's parents' intentions may have been for their children, and that might not necessarily have been so. So having a simple will and being able to name your guardian, again, talking to these people that can be able to agree, and you understand that this is what's going to happen in the event that something happens to both parents. They can step in and they can assume the parenting responsibilities. Again, these are several paid services that can help you set up a simple will. However, there are some questions, predetermined questions, and can always provide an individual's particular circumstance. And that's the importance of talking to an attorney. These paid providers, it's a cookie cutter, basic. This is usually what 95% of the people who need a will, they usually have. Your situation can be completely different. You can throw a couple of monkey wrenches in there and it may not cover it in LegalZoom. And again, the reason we posted this is we wanted to make sure that you actually got it started in hopes that you'd be able to take that into an attorney in itself. Rebecca, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think that, sometimes going through the process, I haven't done it. I've done it before, but I haven't done it in a while. I think that you can go through the process and not actually get any, get the thing, but maybe, by letting it ask you some questions, you'll start to think about things. So it can be useful, even if you end up not using one of these services. I think there is a theory, that Danny and I were talking about, is like having something better than having nothing. And I think probably 90% of the time that can be true. But if you do something wrong, you can end up spending more money later than you would be spending now. So you kind of have to think about it that way too. And yeah, and if you go to a reputable lawyer, and again, if you're out of state when you're watching this or whatever, I'd be happy to connect you with somebody in the state you're in. But I think the person should give you at least an hour, half hour, an hour of free time to talk to you. Like if they're charging you for a time, then it's probably not somebody you'd want to work with anyway. And right now, a lot of people are doing stuff on, in this format on Zoom and on, other virtual formats or on the phone. And it's not ideal. That's not the way we like to do things because, you want to have the personal relationship. But again, if this is a situation that we're in, we have to sort of, be a little bit malleable to the situation and kind of do what we have to do. So if you can get in front of somebody on this format, at least you can maybe get some ideas of, do I really need this or not? And, the other thing too, is I tell people this, even when they come to talk to me, I'm like, go talk to other lawyers. I'm not the be all and end all expert on everything. Maybe somebody else has a different idea, or they're going to think about it in a different way. It's like anything else. You want to talk to multiple people, see who you fit with, see who shares, your vision and your values, and make a decision, because you want it to be a relationship that you can trust and rely on too. So, you're free to talk to however many people you want and
Absolutely.
have time to talk to.
Yeah. And last little point there is the handwritten wills. It's just so much around that it's always just best to get something done ahead of time before, for them to look at. Anybody can contest a handwritten will. I mean, you can contest a will anyway, but handwritten wills are just, a lot of states don't recognize them anyway. And there's no such thing as a simple will anymore. A lot of families are blended. We have a blended family. I have 2 older stepchildren. I have, a son from a previous relationship, and that's not simple. And so it's a lot of moving parts to it, and that's why you would want to use these paid services as a aid when you go and you sit down and you start talking to a professional. So, all right, letter to loved ones, and this is. Just for practical matters, we actually, the seminar we did back last year in July, we actually did it, family love letter and that sort of thing. But this one is just to talk about how to get into the house, how to get mail, how to care for pets if you have them, a list of all of your bank account and your investment account numbers and things of that nature, who to notify at the time of death, your employer, advisors, your family members, listing and location of ownership papers, deeds, insurance, and all that. Again, having that in a file, in a safe, or in a drawers is also helpful. A listing and location of all of your valuables, and this may be the most difficult one because it's the most difficult one for me, is a listing of all the websites and the logins. I have a horrible time keeping track of passwords. And if you ever get to know me and you pick my brain, you could probably get the password to everything I own. Saying that, I'm probably going to go change my passwords tonight, being that I just said that. But, this is what you want to leave to your family members so they know exactly where to start. And as they're dealing with everything else, trying to work out everything else that you have going on outside of your health issues, this is just a big aid. All right. You want to acknowledge the important people in your life. And this is one of the things that we talked about in the, what do we call it? Family love letter. It could be any type of letter, but usually this is a way for you to not only say goodbye, but to pass on your values, pass on some of your stories. Some people, if you're a little older, you have younger grandkids, tell them about a story, that was really important to you in your life and that sort of thing. It allows you to document just your legacy a little bit and be able to pass that on. And if you're giving money to different family members, expressing to them what you would hope they would want to do with that money. You could probably use it. Hopefully you're not carrying any grudges or anything like that. You wanted to apologize or forgive somebody. If you haven't done that, do that today. Don't wait to do that in a letter. Express gratitude for the friendships and the relationships you've been able to build, and then just take a moment to say goodbye. You can also put that in there too. Now, again, this isn't something that could, be done, at one sitting. It's going to take some time, and that's why, we kind of put the web address there to kind of help facilitate that action as well. And these are things that you can do at home without, any help. You probably want the privacy anyway to be able to think about those things. All right. So COVID-19, just a summary here. Just get it done. Complete and sign the healthcare directive, sign the power of attorney for your finances, check account titling and beneficiary designations, draft your simple will, write a letter to your loved ones, and in time, and you can start to organize all of your documents, get all of those. I usually like to get my clients to put them in a binder. We usually get a binder and give them a binder and all of their current statements. We always get rid of the old ones, but the current statements for every account that they have goes into this binder. So it's there, and it takes a little bit to get it set up, but once it's set up, it's a godsend. And we can just pick right up where we left off. Call an attorney and also start to work on your legacy. Rebecca, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's great. I mean, we do something similar with our clients. We send them a binder of their documents, some information about how to title assets, because sometimes they may want to put their assets into a trust that they've set up or something like that. And that way they have a point of reference. And then, we try to tell people, especially at the end of the year, when you get all your like summary stuff in January for the year before, take out the old stuff, put in the new stuff, and it just makes it easier, when the time comes, to not have to be your family to be sort of struggling to figure things out and discovering new assets and, and having to go through probate, and it's a lot. I mean, even if, frankly, even if you plan, it can be very overwhelming, but I think if you plan, it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
Yeah. And I've also had clients or people come in and say, my mother, they have an old statement, she had this insurance company or this insurance policy, and it's with this company on it, how do we get paid on it? And we're like, well, after I looked into it, I'm like, well, this policy hasn't been in effect for 20 years. And, just having up-to-date information can go a long way to help your family members out. All right. Mm-hmm. So everybody on the webinar, I'm going to send this out to you guys tomorrow, is a legacy checklist. And this, you can start to quickly start assembling your legacy plan. And this is what we like to give people to get the ball rolling. You can do a more comprehensive estate plan, but this is a checklist that will get you in the frame of mind and some things that you need to start to assemble to actually get your will and your legacy in order. And so I'm also going to send a legacy planning worksheets, and this is a little bit more detailed, and it'll ask you if you actually have, you've thought about certain things, yes or no. But at the bottom of the form, if you guys want it, and I'm pretty sure Rebecca will not have a problem with this, if you wanted to start the assessment and start looking at the checklist and you wanted to talk to somebody about it, I'm almost sure you'd be willing to sit down or through Zoom or over the phone and talk to them and kind of help them as they start to walk through these assessment forms and checklists. Right? I got to assume you do that, right? I do know you're going to say that because we've already talked about it. All right. So your legacy will be all set when a trusted person is ready to step in and help if that becomes necessary. Your records are organized and accessible. Your loved ones are provided for. You will be remembered for your unique contributions to the world. And so that's when it's set. But one of the things I always like to remind people, and Rebecca, you said this earlier, this is static. It's always moving. There's always going to be a need to update this and change things as you continue. God willing, you'll go on and live a long, long life. To be able to update these things every 3 to 5 years, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's good. And then the other one is I tell people is if something happens in your life. So family member dies, family member is born, family member gets married. Those are times when you
Or
want to take
get
another look.
divorced.
Yeah, that one too. Right.
All right, legacy planning is not hard. You just need to start. And so here's our contact information. If you want to reach out to me, you'll be getting the email from me. So if you wanted to respond to me in the email, you can. But if you wanted to reach out to Rebecca directly, there is her email. Did I spell your? I got your last name. I did correct that. There's her email address and contact number. You could reach out to her directly. That is the end of our presentation. Do we have any questions?
I had one question before, but I answered it, I think, in the not the chat, but the Q&A, because there's for some reason two things.
Oh, okay. All right. So they're asking, how do they schedule a consult?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So with that, if there is nothing else, we want to thank you guys for joining us. Look out. Next month is Women's History Month. So we actually have a couple of things planned for women next month. Look out for our next webinar. I'll be sending out information on those real soon. But thank you guys. Hey, just get started in putting this plan together. And you have the tools to start it at your house. You actually know a good attorney who can actually review it for you when you start to put the pieces together. If you need any help with just looking over your finances, getting insurance documents looked at, making sure those are up to date, my information is in there as well. So I want to thank you guys and you have a good night.
Thank you.